So charts and graphs help us to visualize data so that we can better analyze the data. Let me show you an example of what I'm talking about. So right now we're in the monthly sales worksheet. This is in the graphs and charts workbook. And I provided a link to these files in the video description if you want to follow along. And what we're looking at is a list of budgeted versus actual sales grouped by month. And right now, it just kind of looks like a bunch of numbers, and it's kind of hard to see what's going on right away without digging a little bit deeper. However, let's come here to the monthly sales graph worksheet, and this bar chart is a visual representation of the data we were just looking at, and it's so much easier to see what's going on when you're looking at the graph. I mean, right away, we can see that, in March, sales were really good, and they far exceeded their budgeted sales. And then we can also see all of the weak months. For instance, right here, they had a really weak month in July. Their budgeted sales were really high, but their actual sales were really low. So it's pretty easy to see what's going on when you're able to visualize the data. So let's take a look at one more example. So if you come to this worksheet called Sales by Brand, here we have a bunch of sales for cell phones grouped by brand. And right away, when you look at the pie chart, you see that Apple makes up pretty much half the pie, and Samsung is another big seller. And then you have these other smaller cell phone manufacturers that don't quite have as much in sales. So the pie chart is a pretty effective visual tool for something like this. Now I'm going to show you just how easy it is to create a graph in Microsoft Excel. So let's come to this worksheet called Basic Graph. Okay, and here we have in column A a bunch of different sales rep, and in column B we have their total sales. So we want to visualize this in some sort of a chart or a graph. So right away, an easy way to do this is to click in any cell in this data set. We'll come over here to insert, and then we'll choose this option right here, recommended charts. And now Microsoft Excel brings up a bunch of different suggestions for charts that we can use. So you get a little preview here on the right hand side as you go through all the different recommended charts. Or if you go into this next tab over here called All Charts, now you can see, the different types of charts. Right now we have a column chart, and if you hover over them, you could preview it. You can also do a line chart, a pie chart, which we just looked at, a bar chart, an area chart. You can even do a scatter chart. So there's all kinds of charts that you can do in Microsoft Excel. But let's go back to recommended charts, and let's choose this first chart here. And now we created a chart that easily. So let's move this chart by dragging it up here, and let's make it a little bit bigger by dragging the bottom right hand corner. Now there's all different types of ways that we can customize this graph. If we click on anywhere inside the graph, now we get these options right here on the top right hand corner. And if we click on this plus icon and we come over here, now it has all the different chart elements, and we can add different elements to the chart, or we could get rid of different elements of the chart. So right now the total sales is the chart title, and let's suppose that we didn't want that as the chart title. Then we could just come over here and uncheck that. But we do want that, so let's recheck it, and let's change the name of that, and let's call this Sales by Rep. Now let's come back to the chart elements checkboxes, and let's add an axis title. Okay, and now we have an axis title here on the y-axis and another one here on the x-axis, and we could change the names of these titles. So let's call this one on the x-axis, let's call this rep name, and now we have all the different rep names on the x-axis, and let's call this y-axis title total sales. Now let's come back into the chart element options, and we can also add a legend. So if we check this box for legend, now we have a legend here on the right hand side, and it's saying that the blue represents total sales. And if we wanted to, we could add data labels. So at the top of the bars now, it tells you the total sales. You can even add a trend line. So now we have a trend line here. So there's all kinds of options to how to customize your graph. You can even change the values here in the y-axis. So let's right click on this, And let's choose Format Axis. And now we can set a minimum and a maximum. Right now the minimum is 0 and the maximum is 350,000. But let's change this maximum to 300,000. Now you see that the maximum is 300,000, and we could even change the units of measure. See, right now it's working in increments of 50,000. So if you look here on the left hand side, you see that it goes from 50,000 to 100,000 to 150,000. So let's change these units to 100,000. And now you can see that the y-axis works in increments of 100,000. So you have 100,000, 200,000, 300,000. Or we could even come in and change this to 10,000. And that doesn't look very good, does it? So let's go with the original of 50,000. That looks a lot more clean. Now you can even change the chart type after the chart's been made. So let's say that we wanted this to be a pie chart instead. Well, we could just click on anywhere within the chart, okay? And then we're going to select this option right here that says change chart type. And then let's come down over here to pie and let's choose this pie chart here. And now we have a nice little pie chart instead of the bar chart. So it's so easy to create and to customize charts in Microsoft Excel. Now let's undo what we just did by hitting Control Z. That way we could get back to the bar chart, okay? And I want to show you how graphs and charts can get a little bit more complex, but it's still pretty easy to deal with them. Now let's close out this chart options area on the right hand side. And let's come over here and let's make this graph a little bit more narrow. And let's add a field here in column C. Let's call this budgeted sales. Okay, let's do an auto size here. And now for the actual budgeted sales, let's just use a random function. So we'll say random number between 50,000 and let's say 400,000. Let's do an autofill here. And let's copy and paste this as values. Otherwise, it will keep changing. Now we want to add these budgeted sales to this graph. That way we can see budgeted versus actual sales. So let me show you how to do that. So what you need to do is right click anywhere within the graph and then choose this option right here that says select data. And now we want to add something to the legend entries series. So let's click on the add button here. And now it's asking for the series name. Well, for the series name, we could just click on cell C1, budgeted sales. And now for series value, let's get rid of what's in there. And let's choose cells C2 through C13 because we want these budgeted sales in there. And now let's hit OK. And now we have the budgeted sales in there. But if you look on this right-hand side over here at the horizontal category axis labels, we just have these numbered labels 1 through 12. But we want to change this. We want these labels to be the sales reps' names here in column A. So let's hit this edit button and let's choose these reps' names over here. So cell A2 through A13 and let's hit OK. Now you can see all the reps' names here in the horizontal axis labels. Now let's hit OK. And now we have the budgeted versus actual sales by rep. Now I have these labels here and I want to get rid of them. So one way we could do it is just to select any of these labels and Microsoft Excel automatically selects all of them. And then hit the delete button on your keyboard. And then we need to delete the other ones as well. So let's select them and let's hit delete on the keyboard. Or we could have done the other thing that we did earlier where we came here to the chart elements and we checked the data labels checkbox in order to add it and then unchecked it to get rid of it. Also, let's get rid of this trend line here. So let's uncheck this box for the trend line. And now we have a nice graph for budgeted versus actual sales by sales rep.